Alrighty, welcome to episode 307 of Backpacking America. So I've been getting a lot of stuff on my X and my Instagram feed of, just suggesting like World War II revisionism. And it's something that really bothers me. My grandfather was a World War II veteran. He was in the Operation Overlord campaign, or as those of you that may not know the specifics of that campaign, it was known as D-Day. It was the liberation of France and consequentially Europe. So this hits home for me particularly, mostly because I grew up listening to stories about the horrors of the Second World War, the atrocities of the Nazis, and the heroic actions of just average ordinary people to prevent the world from being ethnically cleansed, enslaved, and having their cultures ripped from them. So, when I see content that suggests, the Second World War was fought over nothing, it really makes me upset. And, I don't really comment back at content like that just because there's so much to say and so little space to say it. So I figured, I finally realized I have a platform. I'm just going to get my thoughts and opinions out there. Frequently, I see this content in regards to criticisms regarding interracial marriage, mass illegal migration, and cultural replacement. So let me break it down. I've seen content where it'll be a picture of an old man with his two black or mixed grandkids, and it'll show him kind of like angry looking or like disheveled, and there'll be a comment saying, "I bet he wishes he fought for the Nazis instead of against them." I've seen people say that, put the words in the mouths of veterans that are no longer here, saying, "Oh, I bet they wish that they fought alongside the Germans after seeing that England is being overrun by Muslims," so on and so forth. And I think these cultural and political happenings that are occurring in the 21st century are being taken advantage of by the very suppressed and very low popular white nationalist movements that are still nascent in the Western world. And it's being taken advantage of, and, the criticisms that they have of modern Western democracy is being amplified on social media because of algorithms. Now, there's also, a trend. The thing is, too, some people may be thinking, oh, they're just joking around or they're just making a joke. There's a difference between joking, making like an edgy joke, and then being actually serious about it. And I think these people, when they make when they make content like this, it's not humorous, it's serious. So one of the things that I have to say about this is there's two. And I was actually on the phone with my friend Kevin Downey Jr. He's a local comedian to me. He has a great show on Long Island News Radio. Definitely check him out. Look him up on X. Really great showman. We were talking about this, and the Second World War of the 20th century and the mass illegal migration and replacements occurring in the 21st century are two separate and distinct historical, political, and cultural phenomenon that cannot be interrelated. The Second World War was fought mostly because Germany was in economic downward spiral, and they did not recover from the Great Depression and could not recover from the Great Depression because of all of the debt they owed to the Allied powers, the occupying powers, really. And rightfully so, because they caused the most destruction. Even though they didn't necessarily start the First World War, they played a big part in the First World War, and they killed millions of people in that conflict. And they lost. So they had to demilitarize the Rhineland. They couldn't have a standing army over 100,000. They owed the equivalent of an untold amount of billions of dollars in the middle of the Great Depression. So they were not doing very well. The Weimar Republic at the time in the 20s and the 30s was not doing well economically. And this compounded, and there were two radical groups known as the Communist Party of Germany, or the KPD, and the National Socialist German Workers' Party, which is the NSDAP. And they both rose to prominence in the early 30s and the late 20s. and the KPD had a very high majority in the Weimar Republic at the time, and they lost in 1933 to the NSDAP because the German people felt that Hitler had a better policy economically and internationally, where he wanted to restore Germany to its greatness, and he wanted to get revenge for the losses of the First World War. And he famously blamed the Jews and other social groups and economic groups for the failings of Germany in the First World War. Whereas the communists said, we want to become a great country through economic reform, land reform, political and social reform, and make us a Germany of the future. And that lost out to the anger and despair of the German worker, who said Hitler was the guy that can get us out. And that war that Hitler started was a war of, what was the word? Revanchism. Taking over lands that were once German and uniting Germans based on the cultural similarities of other people in different lands because they had spoken German and shared German ancestry. So Western Poland had a lot of Germanic speakers. Alsace-Lorraine and France had Germanic speakers and had German culture because it flip-flopped between France and Germany for centuries. And then you had the Nordic countries that obviously have, shared Germanic language and values. So, and Austria, famously. So this was the main reason for the Second World War. And then the real reason the Second World War kicked off and why it became truly global was, one, revenge, and two, the economic system of Europe was being turned against England and France. As their former allied countries were getting gobbled up by the German Reich, Germany was not trading with England and demanded that, Germany be treated fairly on the international economic and political scene, which France and Germany were not having because the Germans lost the war and violated all of the treaties that they signed. So it ended up bubbling up once the Germans invaded Poland, which had a security guarantee with England and France. France and England declared war on Germany, and then America got involved when Germany declared war on us on December 8th, one day after Pearl Harbor. So that was when the Second World War really just exploded. And that was because of revanchism and demanding economic concessions that were either unreasonable or impossible. What's going on today, and keep in mind, before we get to today, in the issues I just mentioned, the Second World War, Germany wanted everyone to be Germanic. They wanted German to be German. They wanted, Poland was going to become German and a land for Germans to live. Lebensraum was going to be realized. When they occupied Russia, they cleared out and liquidated, meaning exterminated, hundreds of Soviet villages in Ukraine, in Belarusia, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, parts of Western Russia, completely eliminated or enslaved. And that way, more Germans could live there. Their whole goal in all the countries they occupied was to Germanize all the areas that they conquered. The only place they didn't necessarily do that was Denmark and France. Those are the only two places that they didn't heavily attempt to force Germanic culture on. Oddly enough, that they didn't do that in France because they wanted to humiliate France. I'm very surprised they didn't. But that's another topic for another day. So it was really on the basis of cultural assimilation, putting Germany and Germanic culture is the only acceptable culture in occupied territories, and eliminating those that went against that norm, either in reality or perceptionally. Today, the conflict is Western governments feel bad for other groups and are importing them into the country and allowing them to be imported into the country because they feel bad. And, in a way, there's a whole industry around the humanitarian industry. That's a big industry. And they're seeing it as a quick money grab and a quick way to reverse declining birth rates instead of actually addressing the problem, which is high cost of living and low wages. And, these problems can be easily fixed by doing what Trump's doing. You shut down your borders, you enforce your immigration process, you put tariffs on countries that are tariffing the shit out of you, forcing companies to do business in your home country and rehabilitating the economy that way. That is the only way you're going to do it. It's the only way. And it's just called taking control and assuming leadership. Just being a leader and being a figure in your own country. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. That's it. That's all these countries have to do. This is not an invading force with an organized army, with a organized state from a country attempting to subvert another country. What this is our own countries, meaning Western countries, refusing to enforce their immigration, refusing to enforce their sovereignty, refusing to say, no, our country comes first. Fuck you. You don't matter. Sorry you're going through that, but our people matter more. You're going to have to come in the right way. Sorry, but that's just how it is. That's all this is. That's all that needs to be done. And then it stops. That's it. It's not like the Arabic or Latino world has a unified, organized state with an Air Force, a Navy, and an Army, and a covert operative wing. And yet, no. All it is a bunch of poor people that see, hey, you know what? We can come to the United States, or we could come to England, and we can just go there, and we're not going to get arrested off the rip. We don't have to go through the process. We could just go there and make a shitload of money, and then maybe we can convert some people to Islam, or maybe we could get some people to, buy food from our bodega and continue on our merry way. That's what they're doing. And, I think personally, the English need to grow a spine, and they need to just say, no, you need to come in the right way or don't come at all. And Trump is even banning certain countries from coming here, even on a vacation, let alone becoming citizens. A lot of them are Islamic. And listen, you know what? Some of these countries, they're only sending people over, or people are only coming over just to convert people to Islam, or just to take things and send it back to their country. Listen, if you're not here to contribute and become an American, or become, in the case of the English, become an Englishman, why the fuck are you coming here? If your whole goal is to retain your identity and not speak English and only have the best interests of your home country in mind and only your religion in mind, why are you coming to the United States? Not saying you have to convert to Christianity or Protestantism or whatever to be an American, but at the end of the day, Sharia doesn't matter. The laws of Venezuela don't matter. The laws of the United States matter, and that's the Constitution and then your state laws. So if you have more pride in your home country and in the identity you had in your home country, why did you come to America? To take our money? No. Then you have to go back. That is what needs to be done. And that is how you solve these problems. It's not the Second World War and the things that caused the Second World War and what's going on today with illegal immigration and migrant crises are two separate things. This over here, the migrant crisis, is caused by decades of CIA meddling in the third world, constantly bombing the third world, constantly embargoing the third world. So now the third world's saying, well, fuck, there's nothing here. We have to go where the jobs are. We have to go where the money is. And we don't like that we have to go there, but we have to go there. So we're going to Germany. We're going to France. We're going to England. We're going to the United States. Whereas if we genuinely just said, hey, you know what? We're not going to take shit, United States, England. We're not going to take shit from the third world. We're not going to let people blow up our buildings and stuff. But, we're also not going to make up the fact that there's we're not going to make up a story saying that there's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and then we're going to go bomb Iraq and destabilize it for the next 40 fucking years. We're not going to overthrow a democratically elected president in Iran and instead give a religious fundamentalist power. We're not going to destabilize all of Latin America because they happen to be communists and we need to go through containment. But here's the thing. Even if you're going to do containment and all the shit that we did in the Cold War, there was no nation building. There was no attempt to build it. The only thing that we cared about is an American society was just making sure communism didn't exist. We didn't care if the people were reduced to barbarians with no language and no conception of plumbing. We just didn't want communism in that area. Well, if you're going to do that and not rebuild it, then you have political extremism, and then you have people that hate us. And they're going to be poor, and then they're going to still hate us, but they're going to try to come here and live here because there's no way they can live in their country because the economic opportunities got blown up 30 fucking years ago. Literally. So, that's the whole moving forward. What happened in the past happened in the past. But that's why the migration crisis occurred, because the United States during the Cold War bombed the shit out of the third world, so much to the point that now people are coming to the United States in droves because we still have it. There's no opportunity for them. I compare it stupidly, but it's a comparison to people leaving New York and then going to Arkansas, Tennessee, Texas, Florida, the Carolinas, because it's so overdeveloped here that it's so high to live here, the cost of living, that people are fleeing to down south where the cost of living is less and you can actually make a living off of one income. Whereas in New York, you need like 3 incomes and a fucking drug trade to have a house here at this point. I mean, a working class neighborhood, it's $1 million fucking dollars for a house in Queens. I mean, you got to be kidding me. So 2 separate causations, right? World War II was revanchism and, fighting for better economic and political standing in the world for Germany. And this migrant crisis is caused by decades of Cold War proxy warfare that spawned a migrant crisis from the third world, which is why you're seeing this. It's not a Jewish conspiracy. It's not a Mossad operation. It's literally the fact that the Central Intelligence Agency assassinated JFK and then helped put in a bunch of warmongers that sided with the military-industrial complex for the next 50 fucking years, 60 fucking years. That's why this is happening right now. And then, of course, we have the problem of birth rates too, but that's an episode for another day. But, that's why I can't take all this World War II revisionism, say, oh, well, I guarantee you they would have fought with the Nazis, No, they wouldn't have, because if your thing is there's cultural replacement occurring in our country now, so you're going to side with people that wanted to culturally replace you then? The Nazis wanted to culturally replace England and America, and they considered America a degenerate, mud-blooded people. Word for word from Hitler. He thought our country was infested with Jews, Negroes, and Protestant or not Protestant, Catholic influence, and was disgusting and needed to be destroyed. That is almost word for word what he said. He definitely said the Jews and Negro part, but the rest I may have added in there. But it's still true to the general statement of he thought we were religiously, moralistically, racially, and ethnically impure, and that our designs of liberty were barbaric. That was another thing he said too. That our designs of liberty were barbaric. So, the people in America siding with the Nazis, he would have fucking culturally assimilated you into being German. There would be nothing American about you. And a lot of the people that parrot this shit are very proud to be Americans. And you guys would be the first to go to the gas chambers or to the firing line. And you guys want it. That's the sick and fucked up part. So it really just doesn't make any sense. And stop putting words in the mouths of people that are no longer here. Please. It's embarrassing and disgusting. And I guarantee you that, the people that fought in that war and contributed to that war effort would have an opinion that is different from me and different from you. And maybe, or maybe it would agree with me or you. I don't know. But the point is, it's a whole group of people in a different time period with a different set of social, political, and economic conditions. So they're not all going to agree with you. Just like some of them they may not even agree with any of us. They may be like, you guys are full of shit. Just shut the fuck up and help us make bullets. That might be just the point of view. And I'm really sick of seeing this whole trend. It's disrespectful, and especially for someone like myself, seeing that. I was fortunate enough to have a grandfather that fought in World War II, and I heard about the bombings and the horrible deaths and the atrocities that the Germans put on the people they occupied, and the importance of liberating Europe and the world from fascist tyranny. Even like my family's Italian. I heard about how Mussolini he took Italy into a war that they were not ready to win and should never have gotten involved in, and how Mussolini destroyed Italy with the promises of making it great. Because Mussolini had the same goal as Hitler, which was irredentism, revanchism, and, a better economic standing. And Italy was on the winning side of World War I. And they still lost land and money, and they were poor. Imagine that. They were the winning side. So this is really what, two different issues that the modern Nazi movement is just trying to put out there and stir people up. It's really just disgusting. So if you're an American and a real American, you'll stand up to these people, regardless if you're a leftist or a Trump supporter. And, that's the one thing at least I could agree with the left on, is that Nazis are bad. Unfortunately, they think I'm a Nazi, and I'm like the farthest thing from it. But I love the spirit and I respect the energy. I'd rather them hate everyone for potentially being a Nazi than being quiet when actual Nazis come in and push this fucking garbage. Anyway, that was episode 307 of Backpacking America. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time.